Namaste. Welcome to the session on financial inclusion and credit support to the rural poor. The session covers the definition of financial inclusion, need for inclusion, deterrence to inclusion, and measures for promoting the financial inclusion. But first, when we start the session, we have to know what we mean by financial inclusion. The Committee on Financial Inclusion, headed by Dr. C. Rangarajan, in the year 2008, defined financial inclusion as the process of ensuring access to financial services and timely and adequate credit when needed by vulnerable groups such as weaker sections and low-income groups at an affordable cost. India, predominantly being a village-based economy, has more than 70% of the country's population living in villages, depending upon agriculture and allied activities for earning their livelihood. But more than 60% of the rural adult population is still financially excluded. Many reasons account for this exclusion. Low literacy level among the rural poor, coupled with poor branch network of the banks and inaccessibility of the rural bank branch are the major reasons. First, the need for financial inclusion. We need to understand why the governments all over the world and society at large is worried about the financial exclusion currently prevailing within the society. The need is because we've realized that until unless we get the people included financially with the organized sector, we cannot improve or understand the inclusive growth. It is very, very necessary for the inclusive growth of the country's society. It's a necessity for sustainable overall economic growth of the world. It lifts financial conditions and standard of life of underprivileged. It empowers an unserved and underserved section of the society. In developed economies, the focus is generally on small population, because in developed economies, generally everybody is already included financially or is associated with the organized financial sector in some way or the other. But in underdeveloped countries or developing countries like India, the focus is on the excluded majority. The majority of the population is excluded from financial services of the organized sector. Various studies reveal that only a section of society has access to the financial services, which restricts the overall economic growth of the society. If we look at the data of population in Indian scenario that have had to be served by bank branches, scheduled commercial banks, over a period of time, we see that in the year 1969 June, rural per branch service was expected in the rural area to serve around about 82,000 people. In urban, 33,000. In totality, one rural and urban branch was supposed to be serving 63,000. 1981, the scenario was like this, that the rural branch was supposed to serve 20,000 people, urban 17,000 people, and an average of 19,000 people per branch. In 1991, this was reduced to 14,000 in rural areas, 16,000 in urban areas, and on an average 14,000 people. In the year 2001, this became 16,000. The expectation of people to be served by a rural branch rose in the year 2001 in respect to 1991 to 16,000, and in urban areas 15,000 per branch. 15,000 people were supposed to be served, on an average 16,000. In the year 2007, where we have a mass branch network, still a rural branch is expected to serve 17,000 people. A single urban branch is expected to serve 13,000 people, and on an average, a total of 16,000 people is supposed to be covered by one banking branch. This, despite many government policies and branch expansion, is still a very high number. Even in the year 2007, despite various government policies and implementation of various schemes, the number of people to be served per branch is still very high. That shows that the need for extending the reach of financial sector to sections of the society, as well as the geographical regions that were neglected in the past, is still a great necessity. In fact, the inclusion is a continued banking relationship which cannot rest until the poor households become environmentally sustainable, financially sustainable, and gender sensitive. The financial sector's relative neglect of the rural sector can be rationalized, though not justified. Mainline finance in India is urban centric. An overwhelming majority of its staff is city bred. Equally important, the cost of running a branch bank has historically been very high. Numerous attempts at evolving a low-cost business model for rural banking have not been totally successful. Thus, despite the well-documented achievements of Indian public sector banks in spreading the banking habit for 2 decades since bank nationalization, large sectors as M.S. Thorat, Deputy Governor RBI records, are the vulnerable sections of the society, as well as geographical areas such as the Northeast, which face financial exclusion to a greater degree than the rest of the country. There are 3 main aspects of financial inclusion, as I emphasized earlier. The financial services need to be provided to the disadvantaged, excluded group at affordable cost. Once again, I'd like to emphasize on what constitutes the financial services. People should have access to institutions where they can deposit their savings, where, if possible, they may earn interest and thus increase their kitty. They should have access to finance for meeting their expenses for day-to-day conduct of their business. These finances should be made available at an affordable cost. Other than being able to deposit funds and avail credit, people should also have access to other services being offered by the financial sectors, for example, remittances, insurances, and advice regarding various aspects of finance. Mainstream people, particularly those living on low incomes, cannot access financial products such as bank accounts and low-cost loans. This financial exclusion imposes real costs on individuals and their families, often the most vulnerable people in our society. It also has cost for the communities in which they live. Operating without a bank account can lead to significant costs. For individuals and families, much needs to be done to ensure that appropriate mainstream banking services are available and that these services meet the need of the low-income groups. Everyone who can reasonably benefit from transactional banking services should be able to do so, and that such services are accepted by majority of people as a basic service of everyday living. Everyone should have the option of accessing these services and the appropriate information to make an informed decision on whether or not to do so. Through financial services, we build economies that encourage self-reliance and self-development of communities. We build economies that conserve natural resources, restore balance of global ecosystem and social political system. We assure power and resources decentralized and inclusive. We recycle our flow of food, water, energy, naturals and waste. We maintain our structures and systems autonomous, interdependent, and that enrich others so as to be self-reliant and conserving. We create and recreate productive work for everybody that enhances human dignity. If this is not done, the world is left with hunger and violence. Affordable credit. Households that operate solely on cash budget are unable to make savings, are more vulnerable, and are far more likely to use at point of need the alternative credit market and pay interest many times that of a standard personal loan, often contributing to spiral debts. In India, traditionally, if people remember, the sahukars of the village areas, where you just took a little bit of loan and it was actually the interest that they ended up repaying for their whole lives and giving up their mortgage property. So actually, they were left with nothing. The poor became poorer due to this. In addition, for those who do get into debt or who struggle to make payments, the supply of free face-to-face money advice falls far short of demand. Moreover, people on low incomes typically require small value loans repayable over short periods. These are not only hard to find but can also be expensive and in most cases propels them into the net of loan sharks. A range of accessible credit products supplied in a competitive market at fair and transparent rates where consumers have the appropriate information and capability to make informed borrowing decisions should be made available. Even when these conditions are met, providing low value loan to low income groups may result in higher cost and therefore higher prices for some. The third most important aspect of financial inclusion is face-to-face advice. For many people on low incomes, credit can be a useful tool in managing household expenditure and that most people are able to keep borrowings under control. This is very important. However, some people have difficulty managing their borrowings and encounter problems meeting credit commitments or paying household expenses. People with the highest debt as a proportion of income are concentrated at the lower end of the income scale. Those at the bottom end of the income scale are also more likely to experience difficulties accessing mainstream products such as bank accounts and mainstream credit. Money advice should be made available to all those who seek it and delivered in ways that meet their needs. Therefore, financial inclusion becomes a necessity for sustainable overall economic growth since it uplifts financial conditions and standards of life of the underprivileged. In developing economies, focus is on small population. In developing economies, India, focus is on the excluded majority. Before we go into the details of how the financial inclusion is to be achieved, we should study as to who is excluded and why the exclusion. Survey reveals that the following are financially excluded groups in India. Underprivileged section in rural and urban areas like small vendors, etc. Agricultural, including marginal farmers, landless farmers, oral lessees. Northeastern region, eastern and central regions, industrial laborers, people engaged in unorganized sectors, unemployed, women, children, old people, physically challenged people, self-employed, urban slum dwellers, migrants, socially excluded groups. Now, the extent of financial exclusion. As per RBI report, exclusion from credit markets is very high. Only 14% of adult population has taken loan. Area-wise coverage, 9.5% in rural areas and 14% in urban areas have taken loan. Regional disparity is even larger, whereas 25% of adult population in southern areas have taken loan, only 7% in northeastern region, 8% in eastern and 9% in central region have taken loan. Of 203 million households, 147 million households are in rural areas, out of which 89 million people are farmer households. Out of these 89 million farmer households, 51% have no access to formal or informal credit and 73% have no access to formal credit. See, what I want to emphasize over here is that 89 million we've got in India 89 million farmer households, out of which 51% have no access to formal or informal credit. That means only 49% are availing credit of some sort from the financial sector, either formal or informal. But what is alarming is that out of this 49%, 73% of this 49% is actually going to the informal area. It is not seeking credit from the formal credit sources. No data to date is available on non-farm and urban households. Now, what are the sources of credit? Sources of credit. Credit being taken from non-institutional sector has reduced from 70.8% in 1971 to 42.9% in 2002. Share of money lenders in rural areas has increased from 17.5% in 1991 to 29.6% to 2002. This may sound oxymoronish, but the fact is that people have started taking credit, but mainly from the informal sector in the rural areas. The problem of financial exclusion is not solely one of availability of products or practices of providers. It is the need to stimulate demand for appropriate banking services and credit products amongst financially excluded group, and to equip individuals to make the most appropriate choice for themselves. In order to do this, individuals may benefit from assistance for understanding the options available to them, the potential benefits of different products, and the requirement of accessing products. Practical assistance in, for example, applying for a bank account may also be appropriate. This kind of informed choice process may be usefully facilitated through various organizations and business facilitators, correspondents, and other voluntary sector organizations or community groups, representatives of central and local government. We will now study the effect of financial exclusion. As already explained earlier, due to lack of availability of formal lending organizations, borrowers take loans from unorganized sector at a very high cost. Exclusion from formal credit market leads to approaching informal and exploitative market. Similarly, funds are also invested with unorganized sector at great risk with lower returns. People are attracted to invest with unscrupulous individual groups promising high rate of returns and who eventually disappear with the deposits, resulting in depletion of already scarcity of these people. Small businesses suffer due to unavailability of formal easy credit sources. Unemployment increases. Lack of proper legitimate source of income results in increase of unemployment, which in turn results in higher incidences of crime. Lack of financial resources also lead to financial exclusion. Now, the reasons for exclusion. Why are these groups financially excluded? The reasons are many. Most important is the lack of accessibility. Remote, hilly and sparsely populated areas with poor infrastructure and difficult physical access. It is widely recognized that these are at least 5 different types of capital. Physical, which is roads, building, plants, machinery and infrastructure. Natural, land, water, forests, livestock, weather. Human, which is nutrition, health, education, skills, competencies. Social, kinship, groups, associations, trusts, norms and institutions. And financial. One of the causes as well as consequences of poverty and backwardness is inadequate access to all these forms of capital. Secondly, lack of awareness, low income, social exclusion, illiteracy. All this constitutes the reason for exclusion. The quality of education imparted in the mainstream system of education, poor attainment level of children, and high dropout rates at all levels result in educationally excluded groups, mainly belonging to socially disadvantaged groups like the STs, SCs, OBCs, and girls from poor households. Distance from bank branch timings, cumbersome documentation procedures, unsuitable products, language, staff attitude are common reasons for financial exclusion. Then, higher transaction costs. Ease of availability of informal credit. This is one of the main reasons why people in rural areas prefer taking credit from a person known to them coming from within the society, even at a higher cost. KYC, know your customer norms, documentary proof and identity address. Unsuitable products, financial products not addressing to the needs of the poor. Lack of health services is one of the essential reasons for financial exclusion. Important health indices like low life expectancy at birth, infant and under 5 mortality level shows that the health services are dismally inadequate. Land is the most important form of natural capital, followed by water. In most of the districts and states where financial exclusion is high, a vast majority of the rural population is either landless or have less than 1 hectare of land. In rain-fed areas, land ownership is higher, but the percentage that is irrigated is very small. For example, in Jharkhand, less than 10% of the cultivable land is irrigated. In Vidarbha, the extent of irrigation is only 7% of the gross cropped area. For small farmers, the access to land and water resources is key precondition for using credit. For tribal communities, access to natural capital in terms of forest lands is severely restricted, and this adversely affects their livelihood and their ability to use credit. Further, financial exclusion is also caused by demand-side issues. The fact that nearly 22% of the population is below the poverty line and could not fully participate in the mainstream economy. Unless some steps are taken on the demand side or in the real sectors, mere supply side solutions from the financial sector will not work. Apart from suffering from poor resource, endowments in terms of low level of natural, physical, human and social capital, the financially excluded segments and regions are characterized by a very low level of social organization. Due to prevailing levels of distress and uncertainty, people are often reluctant to collaborate, to contribute to any common cause, and hence remain financially excluded. Also, a very major factor is that rich, unfortunately, have no compassion for the poor. So, having known these reasons for financial exclusion, our first step has to be combating the financial exclusion. First, we have to fight this financial exclusion. So, banks have taken many measures to improve on financial inclusion and reduce financial exclusion. For example, RBI has advised banks to open no-frill accounts and simplify the KYC norms. Know your customer norms, popularly known as KYC norms, have been implemented all over the world to prevent money laundering to terrorist groups through bank accounts. The banks are advised to open accounts only after properly verifying the identity, address, etc. of the customer. This requires many documentary proofs. In villages and amongst people of low income group, these documentary proofs are not readily available. which make it difficult for people to open bank account. In order to overcome this problem, the banks have been directed to open what we call as the no-frill accounts with simplified KYC, know your customer norms, subject to limiting levels of deposit and transaction amount, which will help in reducing financial exclusion. All no-frill account holders can get group life and group health insurances. Once the cash flow history and saving balances build up in the accounts, banks can initially even give overdrafts and then extend term loans. Future loan can be based on repayment history. This is very important that for the low income group, RBI has simplified the KYC norms. They have stated for those poor where the transaction of money is not expected to be very high, we need not go into the detailed documentary proof. Of course, the bank will have to maintain and monitor these accounts to ensure that the transaction level does not increase. Introduction, another step that the banks have taken is introduction of general credit card. In rural and semi-urban areas, this is a facility which provides revolving credit up to rupees 25,000 for meeting day-to-day business and consumption needs. One-time settlement for overdue loans up to rupees 25,000. This has reduced the debt burden of the economically weak. Kisan Credit Card, a scheme which provides cash credit to farmers for agricultural purposes as well as for consumption needs. Usage of biometric ATMs in rural and semi-urban areas. They use a biometric scanner cum identifier. For example, fingerprints or voice recognition, a mobile and a printer to process the payment. The biometric device is used for the identification and authentication of the beneficiary. In rural areas, because of the illiteracy level, we were unable to provide them the ATM services which required that they should be able to at least punch in their personal identity number. Not having the literacy competency, this group was excluded from the benefits of ATM. To fight that, we've come up with biometric ATM cards, ATMs, where the computer recognizes the fingerprints or the voice and then makes the payment. Bank is utilizing services of NGOs and SHGs and microfinance institutions. These organizations are helpful in educating the public to their financial needs and providing access to financial institutions. Services of business facilitators correspondents, BCs for short, for extending banking services. Their services have been recruited by the banks to assist in providing financial services to people in remote areas. Credit counseling and financial education. Banks have been opening training centers for the farmers, educating them on the latest development on farming and also counseling them on their credit needs. Multilingual website with reference to information on banking. Launching of banking websites in the local language has increased the scope of imparting information to local public. Banks have been advised to identify households with no bank accounts and to open at least one account per household. Regional rural banks and cooperative banks have been revamped so as to increase their reach. Banks with insurance companies to provide disability and health cover. Education is an important aspect of financial inclusion, and the target group where this education needs to be given are school and college children, women, rural and urban poor, defense personnel and senior citizens. Now, another important aspect of financial inclusion is there should be funds for financial inclusion. There are various types of funds. Main two are Microfinance Development and Equity Fund, Financial Inclusion Fund for Development and Promotional Interventions. The Financial Inclusion Promotional and Development Fund will focus on financing the following interventions. Farmers Service Centers. The centers will network on the Technology Fund with agricultural universities, farmers, clubs, the formal extension machinery of the state governments, technical staff of the banks, portals of national level commodity exchange, etc. Such FSCs can be financed by the banks on the pattern of agri-clinic. In the initial stages, some support by way of viability gap funding may be provided. Financial Inclusion Technology Fund to meet cost of technology, Financial Inclusion Technology Fund is being constituted with NABARD to meet the cost of technology adoption. The fund will have an initial corpus of rupees 250 crores to be contributed equally by Government of India, Reserve Bank of India and NABARD, and annual accretions thereto. Banks will be eligible for support from the funds on a matching contribution of 50% from the fund in regard to districts other than tribal districts and 75% in case of branches located in tribal areas identified under the tribal subplan. Another fund is Rashtriya Mahila Kosh. In the 2009-2010 Union Budget, role of microfinance as an instrument of socio-economic change and development has been appreciated, and the Rashtriya Mahila Kosh, which has been working towards the facilitation of credit support or microfinance to poor women, has been developed, and a number of innovative schemes for their benefit has been rewarded by increasing the corpus of rupees 500 crore from the present rupees 100 crore. Coverage of financial inclusion. To date, what is the coverage of financial inclusion? Earlier we talked about the financial exclusion. Now we are talking about the coverage so far of the financial inclusion. The data that I am now going to give you has been put on the website of RBI in July 2009 by Dr. K.C. Chakrabarty, Deputy Governor, RBI. Now the data states that this is regarding the number of saving accounts, which the figure is in millions, which have been opened in various banks. For example, various category of banks. For example, the scheduled commercial banks. In the scheduled commercial banks in the year 1993, there were 256 million saving accounts. In the year 2002, only 246.5 million accounts. And in the year 2007, 320.90 million accounts. In RRBs, the number of accounts was 30.5 million in 1993. 2002, it was 36.7 million. In the year 2007, it is 52.7 million. Accounts in the primary agricultural credit societies was 89 million in the year 1993, which increased to 102.1 million in the year 2002, and in the year 2007 it became 125.8 million accounts. Urban cooperative banks, the figures were for the year 1993, 41.6 million accounts. In the year 2002, just 42 million, barely an increase, 42 million accounts, and in the year 2007, 50 million accounts. Not impressive. In the post offices, the accounts were 47.5 million accounts in the year 1993. For the year 2002, this figure rose to 487.1 million accounts, and in the year 2007, This became 610.3 million accounts. So the total accounts were in the year 1993 454.6 million. In the year 2002 it was 487.1 million accounts. In the year 2007 this became 610.3 million. So if you look at the number of accounts per 100%, in the year 1993 it was just 51. In the year 2002 it was 46, and in the year 2007 it was 54. Total accounts per 100% is still very less. Now, what are the sources of credit which have so far been utilized for providing credits to these rural poor? Non-institutional credit forms 70.8% in the year 1971, and it has been reduced to 42.9% in 2002. Now this is a good figure. Post 1991, increase of share of money lenders in rural areas has increased from 17.5% in 1991 to 29.6% in 2002, reduced from 40% in 1981 to 25% in the year 2002. Now, what are the various type of accounts that the people have in the organized sector? I'll give you the coverage. Estimates are based on various studies or market surveys. And if you look at the graph over there, you'll see that check-in accounts form a 40%, a massive 40% of the total accounts. Life insurance, 10%. Non-life insurance, only 0.6%. Credit card, there's been an increase in the recent years, therefore the number is 2%. ATM and debit card, 13% only. But if you look at the geographical coverage, only 5.2% villages are having a bank branch. Now that's dismal. Farmers coverage, out of 119 million farmers, small and marginal farmers are 97.7 million. That is 82.1% of the total farmers in our country belong to the small and marginal farmer category, which means they either have very little land, they own approximately 2.5 hectares of land, which more often than not is unirrigated. If we study the financial inclusion vis-a-vis the annual income, we notice that for the group where the annual income is less than 50,000, only 34.1% are going to banks in urban areas, 26.8% in rural, and in totality, an average of 28.3% are availing the banking services. For an income group on the other side, on the high side of more than rupees 4 lakh a year, we notice that in the urban areas, the bank accounts, the 98.0% of people have bank accounts. In rural, 96.3%, and on an average, 97.6%. And on an overall average, in urban areas, 61.7% people have bank accounts, 38% in rural areas, and on an average 44.9%. This shows that there's a very low percentage in people having bank accounts with annual income less than rupees 50,000 bracket in urban and rural areas. Challenges being faced by financial inclusion. I will give the details later, but they are mainly scaling up of activities, transaction costs too high, appropriate business model yet to evolve, BC model too restrictive. The financial world has witnessed several branchless banking pilot projects trying to examine the various business models that could be used to ensure the most proper implementation and sustenance of branchless banking systems. The most widely used models have been the business correspondent based model and non-business correspondent based model. Business facilitators or business correspondents. RBI has permitted banks to use the services of NGOs and SHGs, MFIs and other civil society organizations as intermediaries in providing financial and banking services through the use of BF and BC models. The response of the banking system has been low-key and the model is yet to be fully grounded. Following recommendations in respect of BF and BC models are made. Business facilitators. Originally, only individuals who were insurance agents could act as BFs, while no individual could be placed as BC. This was later on widened to include retired officials, for example, the government servants like postmasters, school teachers, and headmasters, who were considered by RBI as eligible to act as BF. Banks may make use of this relaxation and use individuals as indicated as BFs. Banks may appoint ex-servicemen and retired bank staff as their BFs. Banks should ensure that the banking awareness created by BFs get converted to business potentially by providing suitable banking services like mobile outlets. Banks may facilitate easy rollout of this model, mobile banking model, through simplification and rationalization of back-end processes and front-end procedures so that banking operations are made more customer-friendly. Limitation of cash delivery points. In today's scenario, it is not possible for the banks to place their funds at places having inadequate security. Lack of interest, involvement of big technology players. Giants in the technology sector have so far not shown any interest in participating in providing technology to the remotest of areas. Now, our focus has to be on inclusive growth. The Union Budget 2009-2010 has underlined the need to strengthen the mechanisms for inclusive growth, for creating about 12 million new work opportunities per year, reduce the proportion of people living below poverty line to less than half from current levels by 2014, and to ease the delivery mechanism for primary healthcare facilities and with a view to improve the preventive and curative healthcare in the country. Domestic consumptions and investment. Global players will have to look inwards. Increased social sector spending, emphasis on giving benefits to poor clients, and reduction of cost services. All this is needed to be done in the first stage. Appropriate technology is the first step towards financial inclusion. It is the driving force for low-cost inclusion initiatives. The recent developments in banking technology and expansion of telecommunication network in the hinterlands of the country have provided the perfect launchpad for extending banking outposts to remote locations without having to open bank branch in the areas. This can be achieved by leveraging technology to open up channels beyond branch network and create the required banking footprints to reach the unbanked so as to extend banking services similar to those dispensed from branches. In short, technology has to enable the branch to go where the customer is present instead of the other way round. Further, RBI's annual policy for 2007-08 also urged the banks to scale up efforts for IT-based financial inclusion and develop technologies that are highly secure. The enabling provisions and support of RBI has facilitated successful pilot projects in use of IT for extending the banking outreach for the excluded. These projects are premised on technology that uses handheld devices and connectivity with host computers through general packet radio services, global system for mobile communication, core division multiple access, landline networks. The devices also come in several forms like Simputers, simple, inexpensive, multilingual computers, personal digital assistants, program mobiles, etc. There are also rural biometric ATMs which have been introduced by banks and found to be very popular among rural masses. Group for IT-enabled financial inclusion to facilitate development of IT solution for delivery of banking services has been formed. It is understood that the group will advise certain minimum parameters and standards that are essential for setting up robust interoperable systems to open platforms. The State Bank of India Tiny Initiative on Banking Facility through use of Smart Card facility and Government of Andhra Pradesh project on social security payments through small smart cards are first steps in devising the strategy for achieving 100% financial inclusion in the country. Secondly, we need to have appropriate and efficient delivery models. Again, the Government of India, via its Union Budget 2009-10, has raised the allocation of the National Rural Health Mission by Rs 2057 crores over and above Rs 12070 crores provided in the interim budget. On Rashtriya Swasth Bima Yojana, which has operationalized last year. More than 46 lakh BPL below poverty line families in 18 states and union territories have been issued biometric smart card. The scheme empowers poor families by giving them freedom of choice for using healthcare services from an extensive list of hospitals, including private hospitals. An amount of Rs 350 crore, making 40% increase over the previous allocation, has been provided in 2009-10 budget in a move to bring all BPL families under the scheme. Mainstream banks' determination and involvement is a must. Semi-urban and rural branches of commercial banks and RRBs or regional rural banks, may set for themselves a minimum target of covering 250 new cultivator and non-cultivator households per branch per annum, aggregating to 11.15 million households per annum, with clear emphasis on financing marginal farmers, tenant cultivators, and poor non-cultivators. Giving the existing staff strength, it should be possible for commercial banks, including RRBs, to provide access to credit to at least 250 hitherto excluded rural households at each of the existing rural and semi-urban branches. For this, banks will have to strengthen their staff and use a variety of delivery mechanisms. There should be a strong collaboration amongst banks, technical service providers, BC services, and liberalization of BC model is needed. The long-term viability of BC model is being worked out by permitting banks to collect reasonable service charges from the customer in a transparent manner for delivering the services through the BC and hand-holding of BCs by banks in the initial stages. The distance criteria has been liberalized. Involvement of all banks and other financial institutions should make banking for the unbanked their mission. Now the roadmap for the financial inclusion. What is the future? What we need to do? What has been devised by the Government of India? Government of India wants that the banking services to every village with a population of over 2,000 at least once a week on regular basis should be provided by March 2011. State governments have to ensure development of infrastructure where penetration by the formal banking system is required. They have to generate awareness of the various banking policies and regulations relating to the common person. Expedite use of IT solution for various financial products like NREGA, NREJA. The existing banking infrastructure and NGOs, which have already developed extensive inroads into rural areas, should make optimal use of for enabling outreach of banking services. The BFBC models backed by technology applications should encourage a role for the small players and integrate them into the national system. The committee is of the opinion that state governments should make payments to NREGP and social security payments through such technology-based solutions. Database also needs to be built up. We should know exactly what we are required to do and how much. The requirement of rapid financial inclusion as a national goal can only be achieved by using appropriate IT solutions. The creation of a national database, sectoral, geographic and demographic reports, and also a payment system among the cardholders to benefit the underprivileged, unbanked population of the country is not possible without extensive use of IT. This alone can bring down the cost of the small ticket transactions of the financially included and make nationwide financial inclusion a reality. The technology suppliers and banks should evolve common minimum standards for ensuring interoperability between their systems. I would like to give an example of how financial inclusion can benefit the poorest of the poor. We'll take a live example. In many of the rural areas or semi-urban areas, small cities, the mode of communication is mainly by hand-pulled rickshaws or cycle rickshaws. The procedure, now the people working on this, the rickshaw pullers are actually very poor people and they cannot afford to own a rickshaw. So what generally happens is, there is a main rich rickshaw owner who has something like 100 to 200 rickshaws. He lends them out to various rickshaw pullers on a daily rent of say rupees 20 or 25 rupees daily. Now these rickshaw pullers throughout their life give rupees 25 per day to the rickshaw owner, and these rickshaws are never owned by these rickshaw pullers ever. So throughout life they have to pay a certain rent, which of course makes a hole in their kitty earned. Now what some banks have done recently is that they have provided loan for these rickshaw pullers for purchasing of rickshaw. Say it amounts to something like 9,000 to 10,000 rupees, and they have requested or advised these rickshaw pullers to give their 25 rupees per day earning as a rent to the bank instead of that rickshaw owner, with the result that these rickshaw pullers have been are able to own the rickshaw within a period of 2 years. Therefore, their income and their standard of living increases. In conclusion, I would like to emphasize that it is becoming increasingly apparent that addressing financial exclusion will require a holistic approach on the part of the banks in creating awareness about financial products, education and advice on money management, debt counseling, saving and affordable credit. The banks would have to evolve specific strategies to expand the outreach of their services in order to promote financial inclusion. One of the ways in which this can be achieved in a cost-effective manner is through forging linkages with microfinance institutions and local communities. Banks should give wide publicity to the facility of no-frill account. Technology can be a very valuable tool in providing access to banking products in remote areas. ATMs, cash dispensing machines, can be modified suitably to make them user-friendly for people who are illiterate. To sum up, banks need to redesign their business strategies to incorporate specific plan to promote financial inclusion of low-income group, treating it both a business opportunity as well as a corporate social responsibility. They have to make use of all available resources, including technology and expertise available with them, as well as the MFIs and NGOs. It may appear in the first instance that taking banking to the section constituting the bottom of the pyramid may not be profitable. But it should always be remembered that even the relatively low margins on high volumes can be very profitable proposition. Financial inclusion can emerge as commercial profitable business. Only the banks should be prepared to think outside the box. So, in the last 1 hour, we've understood what financial inclusion is, who are the financially excluded group, why is it necessary to get more and more people within the framework of financial inclusion, and the measures for promoting financial inclusion, funds for financial inclusion, and challenges being faced in the financial inclusion sector.